All right, so Katakuri versus Wano. How would he do had he shown up to Wano and he fought with some of the prominent members of the Beast Pirates? First things first, a lot of people power cliff Katakuri very unjustly and incorrectly. Power cliffing does exist, but not nearly to the extent people downplay Katakuri. The best way to justify this is through Sparrow, actually. So when we first get into Wano, we get this statement right here that when Big Mom gets knocked off the ship and they don't know where she's at, Sparrow says he's going to take control of the Big Mom Pirates because he's the eldest son. He's then interrupted by one of his brothers who says no, it would obviously be Katakuri because he's the strongest, which Sparrow has no objection to. Plus we have other statements, countless statements of Katakuri just straight up being called the strongest of the pirates besides Big Mom, obviously. So we know that Katakuri is stronger than Sparrow, even at the beginning of Wano, which again, Sparrow only objects to seniority, not power. So that means any feat by any Big Mom pirate, but the only one that's prominent here is going to be Sparrow, is going to just uplift Katakuri. Now, when we look at Sparrow's feats, he's basically given the exact same portrayal as Jack. They fight in their final fights, they both fight cat and dog respectively, and they both have success against the version that is out of Sulong. Give or take a few details, Jack went up to the roof to help Kaido fight with his army, and he fought against multiple Sulongs and defeated a lot of Sulongs, including like the Musketeers, but he had backup there and he did have Kaido there as well. He then lost to the two Sulongs, lost his horn, and then was patched up. He's also an ancient zone, and zone resilience is much different than just your average layman's resilience or paramecia resilience like Sparrow to begin with. Sparrow, on the other hand, got kicked off the waterfall by Marco, obviously. He then had to craft the candy slug to basically float all the way back to Wano. Then it seems that Marco went after him, chased after him. They brokered a deal. Sparrow came in. He was off guarded by both Wanda and Carrot in their Sulong form, took that off guard attack, and then was able to endure fighting the two of them, 2v1 Sulong fight, and beat them. Obviously, they dropped out of Sulong because the clouds covered it up, but he still wasn't defeated when they were in Sulong, and he only said that they had a potential to maybe get a victory, not that it was going to be definitive, and then he straight up beat them. He didn't have any real wounds besides the initial slash mark across his face that he was off guarded by, and then continues on fighting. We then see the Sparrow goes on to shoot arrows at Chopper, and then he got hit with an attack from Sanji essentially, because Sanji kicked Queen into Sparrow, sent him flying, so he took that damage as well. And then he actually got off guarded by Cat to start their fight, where he got slammed into the ground. He didn't have any backup, was not only able to take that off guard attack, but able to fight off and endure fighting Sulong Cat Viper for a period of time, where Jack, when he was fighting Sulong Dog, says if he landed one more hit, it would probably have been over for him. Jack also initially had backup when he was fighting Dogstrom, but in fairness, their fight lasted a little bit longer. Jack and Dogstrom started fighting before Cat and Sparrow. But like I said, he had backup at the beginning part of that fight. And again, they basically get defeated at the exact same moment. They get the same exact dialogue when they are defeated. It's basically supposed to be a moment where Dog and Cat essentially beat an equivalent opponent. That's the whole point. So essentially, when you look at it like that, from that perspective, if Sparrow is being compared to Jack, then Katakuri is 100% above somebody like Jack. Which means he'd have to be above all the other Tobiropo because that's the hierarchy of Kaido's crew. Jack actually didn't even believe any of the Tobiropo could take on and defeat and kill the Scabbards. Whether or not you want to believe that, that's fine, but the three lead performers are the three strongest in the Beast Pirates, so any of the Tobiropo, including Ulti, who a lot of people try to argue could be Katakuri, would not stand a chance, especially given in chapter 930, when Kaido sees that Big Mom is infiltrating the island, he very clearly talks about, are the kids with her? Obviously, Kaido knew some of the kids even when they were in the Rocks days, because even 38 years ago, people like Sparrow, Katakuri were born. Yes, they were kids, but he knew them at that point, and he's known them over the years, clearly by this reaction. But he says, don't let them in. What are you fools doing? Are Linlin's brats with her? The guy answers, it seems there's a number of them on board. Kaido then slams down in front of his fighter subordinates. He says, the brats are her officers. If they disembark, it'll be a full-scale war. So he went from just the kids to are the officers, which should be the sweet generals at least, but it might even extend to characters like Oven and Daifuko, Sparrow. But it's the stronger kids, the officers, the ministers. So that tells you right there, he knows the differences between the kids and the officers. He knows how strong they are, and he is basically telling you that they are a threat to his crew. And then when King kicks down the ship, Kaido lets out a sigh of relief. So with Katakuri being the strongest of these officers, the strongest of these kids, it only looks better for him as we continue on. Now, some of the arguments for Ulti span from this interaction with Luffy, where Luffy is in a rush to get to the roof. So a lot of people think Ulti scales over Katakuri from this instance because she has a brief like headbutt clash with Luffy where Luffy just decides to take her headbutt on his own head when that's her specialty. He literally just like brushes it off like nothing happened and then like violently blitzes Ulti in base, slams the shit out of page 1, and then she grabs him off guard to where she's holding him down in her zone form. So she's holding him in the zone form where he was off guard, obviously, and Luffy's like, oh, she's strong. People like to highlight that. I'm gonna go gear 4. This is the same Luffy, mind you, that has the AP to damage Kaido with Ryu, albeit being shallow, but he can draw blood from Kaido. He's able to dodge Big Mom's attack. He's already been able to blitz her, and his AP is more than enough to be able to destroy her. This is situational, obviously, and going gear 4 would just simply inflate his arms. It would basically be like a balloon. He'd balloon up and she'd get shot off him. I think that should be common sense. The funny thing about this is that he basically does the same thing with like a random number 8 chapters later, where he goes into gear 4 to fight a number that is somebody that X Drake can take down, and they actually get a side-by-side panel where Drake takes down a number right next to Luffy taking down another number, and he calls that number a monster. Luffy needed gear 4 to beat that number. Is he also going to be scaling there? No, obviously not. Frankie was able to fucking shoot one of these numbers. These numbers are pretty much fodder. It's just a scenario where Luffy's in a rush, and that was the thing that made the most sense for that situation. So obviously the Parasparrow scaling already dispels that notion because Jack is above Ulti, but I figured I'd mention it because I know somebody would bring that up. Now, the reason that's even relevant is because people basically have this belief that base Luffy, at that point in the story, had already far surpassed everything he had done in WCI. This is based on the premise that Kaido in base one-shot Luffy, right? Albeit he's confirmed to have been using Conqueror's coding in base to one-shot Luffy, and Luffy wasn't able to damage that Kaido. They basically say he didn't have any scaling to him. He's just a one-shot victim, and by extension, Katakuri scales to that Luffy. Katakuri would get one-shot by that base Kaido, and Luffy's training in Udon brought him to a level where obviously now he's able to damage Kaido, draw blood from him with his base punches, and they claim have better reactionary feats. Now, it is 100% true that his AP 100% cliffed his gears. That is a fact. He went from not even being able to damage Kaido with barrages of gear 4 bounce man punches to being able to rock his shit in base, but I guess you could call that gear 3, but it's still a situation where him having Ryu is going to have more potency than his punches without Ryu due to the internal destruction, the Dura negation aspect. But where this argument is weird is that it's not really the same situation. If you go back and look at when Luffy fought with base Kaido in Currytown, he actually does dodge a blast breath, so he gets a reactionary feat there. And he's also very worked up at the fact that he thinks his crew died to Kaido's blast breath on the mountain. He was like, oh, they must have escaped. They had to have escaped, but he's seriously shaken up about it, which you can visibly see, and he gets enraged, and he starts just barraging Kaido with punches, obviously to no avail, but he's punching the dragon, which takes a ton of energy and force, and he ends up barraging even base Kaido with his bounce man punches. Clearly not calm, and he's clearly going to be fatigued by that point, both of which limit your observation capabilities, as stated and as shown. So in a situation where he's not calm, it's very, very likely he didn't use Future Sight here, which is highlighted by the fact that when he does use Future Sight on the roof in base, he explicitly states, I even looked through the future this time and it still hit. Holy shit, this is something I didn't do before and I still got hit. And that would make sense anyway for a base with Future Sight to react better than a bounce man, because we've seen even with Kaido that you can basically make up a blitzing level of speed with Future Sight, given that he's arguably not even able to perceive Snake Man's punches at a point where he's like, where are these attacks coming from? He's just getting repeatedly hit to a point where he can go into arguably slower, more clunky form of his dragon form and easily evade them and blitz down Luffy. That's all thanks to Future Sight. So we know it's a big, big, big deal. That's why I really don't think it's the greatest of comparisons. Also, Luffy didn't know anything about Kaido's abilities or power at that time. He had just seen this guy that he's punching all around. He exerted all this energy, and then Kaido gets up and then sparks him down, you know what I mean? So it's something he was kind of almost unprepared for as well. Now, with that said, you have a situation where this Luffy, even in WCI, was able to react to Big Mom a couple times. He was dodging her attacks, and he was able to even intercept one of her punches You see that even then, but then when you go to Udon before the Ryo training, he has better reactionary feats than Queen to Big Mom. Queen got taken out by Big Mom immediately, and this is all-in Big Mom, no hockey, no Devil Fruit usage. Got slammed and knocked unconscious in 2 hits. Luffy was able to evade the attacks. This is all going to upscale Katakuri. Katakuri scales to that version of Luffy. You also see that Jinbei is also able to react to Big Mom, even arguably in a more nimble state, a faster state, you could say. Katakuri disgustingly blitzed Jinbei in WCI. Now, Jinbei hasn't done anything to warrant him getting stronger. Like, he'll try to just give this arbitrary thing based on a statement pre-time skip the strides gets stronger between islands. Like, that was something that they said pre-time skip, and it's not going to just be a crutch you can use to just baselessly assume that these characters got massive increases without any showings of that. Jinbei has done nothing and has not shown any new wrinkles to his game to imply that he has gotten significantly stronger than when he was on Whole Cake Island. Any of Jinbei's feats at that point is only going to serve to prop up Katakuri further. Now, people like to bring up Katakuri's AP. Katakuri's AP is going to be better than Parasparrow's, which is able to damage somebody that's equivalent to Jack, Ashuradoji, 3rd commander tier opponent, or Parasparrow is able to severely wound Nakamamushi. Big Mom thought Parasparrow had enough AP to damage and potentially even kill Marco. Katakuri's is obviously going to be above that. It's also implied that Katakuri may even have advanced armament haki, as he says that there's stages to armament haki. That's when Luffy took damage from his own punch. It almost seems as if Katakuri emitted. Then you have to take into account that Luffy is stated to be in his fastest form in Snake Man. Katakuri was repeatedly outpacing the Snake Man, and then Luffy's arm stretching even add more speed to it, and Katakuri is still able to react to those attacks. So we're in a situation here where Katakuri is probably most comparable to somebody like Queen. I think that that's the more debatable argument. I think both have arguments against each other. I would favor Katakuri in that matchup as well, but he doesn't have any chance against somebody like King. So if you guys want me to do a King versus Katakuri video, or potentially a Queen versus Katakuri video, maybe I'll do that in the future. But this video was just to serve to basically say that Katakuri isn't getting washed by the Toby Roppo or, you know, fodder characters, and definitely above somebody like Jack. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys have a new outlook on Katakuri after this, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.